I just realized it isn't. Okay. Are we here? Yeah, we should be live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Nkosi Talk Shows today. And we're going to be talking about cultivating a winning mindset with a warrior mentality. And I have Amanda Cottrell here today, and I'm Sherry Lovegrove. And we're just really looking forward to sharing whatever is coming up for you. And we'd love you to be able to send us some messages so that we can have a look and be part of this conversation. So maybe I start because I actually said this topic and kind of mentioned that it would be. But for me, I've been really thinking a little bit about this cultivating a pregnancy mindset, because I happen to work with mainly pregnant women or women from menstruation to menopause, basically, and all in those fertile years, and they're trying to get pregnant. And one of the things that's, the biggest things of infertility and difficulties in pregnancy is the fact that people are massively stressed. And I know, Amanda, you probably know a lot about stress, and particularly being a teacher. But what I realized is once they got a grip of their mindset, once they were able to work out what was really going on for them, they were able to do that thing of moving forward in a very different way. And I remember once before you were talking about failing forward. They were able to see their mistakes and learn from their mistakes and use that to catapult them forward. So I really sort of have been talking a little more about that and what's the fundamental structure that it would require for having cultivating a mindset that's winning and a warrior mindset, and also about how do we do that consistently every day so that it becomes part of our life. So, yeah, and Amanda, would you like to just give a little comment there? Because I know being a teacher, you have to really maintain your mindset.
Yeah, there definitely is times where teaching is super stressful, right? As you all
Yeah.
know, I'm still in Canada. I know we're still teaching for another couple of days. I don't know about what it's like in the States or wherever you guys are, but we're still teaching right now. But I think cultivating a winning mindset really is about being conscious of it and being
Mm.
conscious of what are the thoughts that are going on in our minds, and then being taking that awareness and being like, what is it that I want to be thinking about? And how is it that I'm going to control my mind so that I can navigate the downs of my mind, right?
Mm.
Because when we get stuck, or like sometimes we get into the spiral, right? Like it's a downward spiral of,
Mm.
it's like, I'm not good enough. I suck at this. This is too hard. I can't do this. And there's so many things that you probably thought, this was too hard, I can't do this, at different points in your life. But babies get up and they eventually walk, right? Like
Mm.
almost
Yeah.
every baby, no matter how hard learning how to walk is and how many times they fall down, they pick themselves back up and they go again. And we don't really think of it like as a winning mindset for babies. We don't worry that our babies will never walk. I worried a little bit that mine wouldn't, because she took till like a year and a half to walk. But then when she walked, she just walked. And she like never was that baby that fell a whole bunch. She just was like, okay, I can walk now. I'm like that. She was like that perfectionist from day one. Like, I'm not going to do it unless I can do it. And then once I can do it, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine that would have been quite anxiety provoking. Everybody around you is their babies are walking around, or they're crawling and they're doing all sorts of things. And then you start thinking, oh, my baby, what's going on with my baby? Yeah. And all sorts of things, because we have that comparison that can often happen, certainly with mums and pregnancy, and there's lots of competition there. Yeah, so that's really so interesting. And that she got up straight away and she talked. And there's so many kids that do that with talking as well, don't they? I mean, there's a particular thing where often girls talk a lot and boys don't often. And I know this is a generalization, but in general, this is kind of what seems to happen. And then when they talk, boy, they've got talking when they've got something to say. And they almost speak absolutely perfectly, just like what you said, your daughter walked. pretty much perfectly. Is she a perfectionist, by the way?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I just found it so funny. Like she'd always hang on to your hand and walk wherever, but then like she wouldn't walk by herself. And then she just walked by herself. And then, like she was, but there's like other kids that are like, walk, walk, tumble, 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 walk, walk, tumble, tumble, tumble. And she was never that. Like I never had to worry about her falling. And even like she crawled very young, so I thought she would walk really young,
Mm.
but she didn't. She only crawled when she could crawl, and then she only walked when she could walk.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's just different how we're all so different, and we're
Mm.
all so um even our minds from a very young age, like babies have personalities and babies have very different personalities from like birth almost, right?
Yeah.
Like, and even I'm sure moms could assume that even before birth, their babies had like a personality while they're growing inside them, like when they decide they want to kick them and just right, like, oh,
Yeah.
this one likes to be up at night.
Mm. So yeah, I mean, reflecting back now as a mum, how would you have, what sort of things would you be thinking about in the sense of how do we create that winning mindset for a child? What sort of things have you learned from that would be really beneficial and helpful?
Yeah, I know that like being a teacher, that each kid, like there's some kids that come in and they just are like those go-getters and they have a winning mindset, whereas other kids are like afraid of their own shadow, right? And really like
Mm.
building them up. And what is it that we can do when they come into the classroom to really cultivate like, hey, like even if you don't have this now, maybe you
Mm.
will later. And I had this conversation with one of my students a couple weeks ago
Mm.
who really struggles with the academics part of school. And he's like, oh, why so and so so smart? Like, I can't, like, he's so smart. He's so easy for him. And I said, but not everything is easy for him. I said,
Mm.
there's some things that you're way better at. And he looks at me, he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, there is. I'm like, think about sports. Like, you
Mm.
are so good at every sport that you try and you like excel in those areas. And I said, I don't think that other kid, they excel at sports the way that you do. And he started thinking and he's like, you're right, Miss Cottrell. Like he's like, I didn't even ever think of it that way. And I said, we all have different ways that we're smart. I said,
Mm.
don't ever think that you're dumb because that's not you. You might need to practice a little bit more in certain
Mm.
areas, but our brains are actually like we can build connections in our brains and we can learn anything that we actually set our mind to. It's just sometimes needs more practice for some people than for others, and that's okay. And so there's even a book called Limitless. I remember reading it by Jimmy Quick, I think is
Mhm.
his last name. And he talked about how they like step by step how to train your mind to be able to read faster and how to train your mind to be able to memorize things faster. And if you practice these over and over and over again, that consistency of practice, what's really going to change your mindset and change your abilities essentially. And even
Mm.
when we talk about like extreme athletes, they're really good at what they do, probably because they have a little bit of natural ability, but they're really good at what they do because of their consistency and their willingness to
Mm.
go above and beyond in their practicing. Like I was listening to a talk show by the swimmer in the States. I think her name's Riley, and she was talking about practicing even during the pandemic for 4 hours a day when the pools were closed. She'd go to a
Yeah.
lake and swim across the lake for 4 hours and just like they practice like they're in the pool at 5 a.m. and then they go to school and then they practice again afterwards. Like if you
Mm.
have that much dedication to your sport or your whatever it is that you're doing, that's really a winning mindset is
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do this no matter what it takes. Right. And
Yeah.
I've been thinking
Yeah.
a lot about like what it is to really succeed and be successful. And the biggest thing that they talk about in all of the books that I've read, reading all the time. So there's like multiple books that have the same theme through it, and it's consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is really the biggest indicator of your success. No matter how fast you go, as long as you consistently continue to take steps in that direction, eventually you will, and you're determined, no matter what it is that you
Yeah.
do, you'll eventually become more successful in that area.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think about when I think about like a winning mindset is really
Mm,
about how can we set our goals on something and then be really consistent in stepping towards them. And then that warrior mentality is almost like our anxiety stepping up, right? And it's
mm,
like my anxiety like almost paralyzes me sometimes in my inability to go and try something or do something because I just get stuck in my worries of like I can't do this or I'm not good
mm.
enough. Like why even bother? Because it's not going anywhere anyways. Right? Those
Yeah.
like things your anxiety tells you and almost like paralyzes you in you stepping forward and in moving forward and towards your goals. And so how can we overcome that anxiety that's taking over in some cases? What do you think?
Yeah, I was really amazed about something, and then I had a really interesting insight, which was a little bit like how you were talking to that young kid. And what really struck me was, that the teacher needs to have that kind of winning mindset and those beliefs that this child can do something. And I really loved hearing how you said, hey, and the tone of your voice and the encouragement that comes from that. Hey, I've got this belief. While you don't have it, I'm going to carry it for you, right?
Mhm.
And there's something there that I think that I felt so deeply when you said it, that I thought, oh, yes, this is something. This is a kind of a vital criteria, I think, that certainly for kids, we need to have in teachers, right? We need to have in parents, that you
Mhm.
have this, that the parents themselves are cultivating their mindset so that they can be in that frame to uplift their children, right? So the idea, okay, so you may not be learning these tasks so fast,
Mhm.
but you have skills. There are skills. Let's have a look at those skills. Let's home in on those skills. And, that person has a struggle with something else. So learning to see that everybody learns differently and has different skills to which they apply. And yes, the compounding interest effect, we all know that you put your money in your bank and you get interest, right? Oh, maybe not so much with what's been happening with the bank stuff. But seriously, every time we do something, we persevere, we compound it, we get it, it becomes stronger, and we get interest from it. Literally, we grow those neurons, which we've all talked about neuroplasticity before. So yes, so that winning mindset, definitely, as you said, warrior to warrior would be
Mhm.
really good. So learning what do we need to do to move from the worry to the warrior, that we can stand in that courageous place and move forward. What sort of things allow us to be able to shift, to do that switch, to be able to move from one to the other. But I do want to also comment about that beautiful painting behind you, because it is actually making me feel very relaxed. I don't,
Yeah.
and maybe because there's a lot of blue, a lot of purple, but is that, and there's compasses in there as well. So I'm creating my own story already about what's going on in that picture. Um,
I,
do you want to
I
explain a
painted
little
it
bit about that?
actually. Yeah, I painted it. I painted it as the intention to like align your chakras as you sleep. And it's
Ah,
like
right.
there's the
Whoa.
chakras and then there's mandalas in it as well. And so it's actually, I'm sitting in my bedroom. Usually I sit in my office, but it's so early in the morning. And when I talk on this, I don't like to wake up my daughter. Otherwise, she wakes up with a grumpy mindset. And it's like 6 a.m. here. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
yeah, I paint it's a painting with the colors of the rainbow that I did. And on like four different pieces of canvas.
Mm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, would you like to kind of talk a little bit more? Because this is all connected anyway to mindset in some ways, making sure that we sleep well, right? And making sure that
Mhm.
we align ourselves well. So tell us a little more about that chakra painting or how that works. I think that would be really interesting for our audience.
Well, there's a lot of beliefs around like the feng shui, right? And how
Yeah.
you're like even should have like a headboard on your bed so that it like helps keep your energy, and help how you shouldn't have anything underneath your bed because that's like stuck stagnant energy. And it's really just about like allowing when you rest to really like rejuvenate, right? To
Mm,
rejuvenate all of your energy and your energy centers of your body. And when we can, like there's different things, different emotions connected with each
mm,
chakra as well. And so if one of our energy centers of our body is stuck or not moving, that can affect our emotions as well, and in fact what's going on in our minds. And so if we're worrying a whole bunch about our safety or our home, or
mm,
um, we need to get more grounded in our sense of security, and that's like our root chakra, right?
mm,
And so if our root chakra is unbalanced, those are some of the mindset things that we can be thinking about. And then with our sacral chakra, there are there's different things that connect with that around our sexuality and our creativity and our ability to just like be creative beings. And
mm,
so if that's blocked, we can be cultivating mindsets of like just not feeling like I can go out into the world and be
mm,
creative. And then our solar plexus chakra is the yellow chakra, and it's our powerhouse. And so if you're feeling very powerless, that can mean that that chakra is stuck, and that's something that you might want to work on healing, and even work on mindset work or affirmations that connect with that chakra. I actually have a coloring book on Amazon that has affirmations for each chakra,
mm,
and um and some books on that too. And then your heart chakra is those chakra are, it can be green or pink, and it is connected to our sense of like love for ourselves and love for the world. And if you're feeling very unlovable, then that chakra can be stuck.
mm.
And then our throat chakra is our ability to speak up for ourselves and speak our truth. And if you feel that you can't speak up in situations, then that chakra could possibly be blocked. And then our third eye chakra is our connection. I'm trying to remember everything off the top of my head.
That's
Is our
okay.
connection
I mean,
to like our sense of self, and then our crown chakra is our connection to the divine, and that we're all
mm,
interconnected in this universe of
yeah,
atoms that are all made of the same thing. And so these two I think are always very connected because they're like our connection to the divine.
mhm,
And so if those ones are blocked, they can make you feel like you're disconnected from everything around you. And so that really is about like cultivating a winning mindset in lots of ways too, is when you
mm,
can notice what it is that's holding you back or is stuck, and then how can I work on it through affirmations connected with what it is that is cultivating my worry.
yeah,
And then actually even doing activities, like there's different activities that you can do for each chakra as well, that allows you to clear that energy and then be able to go out into the world and have a more winning mindset towards whatever it is that your goals
yeah,
are.
yeah. And yeah, and thank you so much, because that it's a lovely overview. And as we said, the more conscious we are of these areas, the more we can actually consciously do actions that can allow us to free and open those areas. Maybe what's helpful for people is to think about it along our spine. There are nerve plexuses that actually relate to each of those chakras.
Mhm.
So we know that if, say, something's wrong with your stomach, for example, it'll fit along that particular, we know exactly where it fits on that nerve, where they all come together. And so each of these chakras have a direct neurological effect. They have a direct spacing on that area. So it's not just woohoo. There is something in about when we pay attention, and maybe that is also, if we think about our mind and we think about things that are going on, is that, we are a body first before we are a mind, right? We evolved, and our brain, when we're born, actually is not a hell of a connected. We have all the cells that we need, but they're not connected yet. So actually, if you look at a baby's brain, you'll see that it actually looks pretty empty. You see all these the white bits around the edges of where all the cells are, but you don't see the connections. But later on, as you look at an older brain, you see these white fibers, which are the connections. So we know that babies come into the world with some history, which is actually embodied history, right? So when they have trauma or they have a bad experience in utero, or their mums are carrying, or the sperm carried some trauma that they bring in, then that will affect how their personality will start to be, right? So you talked a little bit about the personalities. But when they come in, they are predominantly feeling beings, mainly feeling. And babies and young children really feel that energy. They're like little beings of antennas that can just grab all the energy, but they also radiate energy, which is really interesting. So, but what's really important is that we encode our emotions in our body, right? This is where I'm kind of going with the why am I coming at a roundabout route. But why we encode it in our body. So when we feel something in our stomach, we've encoded that anxiety, that primary trauma, or that primary hurt gets encoded in that place. So every time we weren't allowed to speak our truth, then we feel it in our throat, like we're being suffocated, right? And if we can't say our truth, what happens? We get pain down there, and in order to push stuff down so that we can't express ourselves. So part of a winning mindset is, a way of being conscious of what's being activated in our body. What is being activated? Where is it aligned with the chakra? Because that chakra will tell you exactly the kind of common emotions, the common beliefs that might be sitting there, or values. And that can give you a starting point from where to kind of catapult off from. So I love that you've got that beautiful, beautiful painting, set of paintings behind you. They're really gorgeous. And I love that it's all the way like a rainbow, right? Which you have across there, how the colors just intermingle and blend and move to another. So you don't really know that point of where they actually become one and the other. You've got that sort of slow transition. And part of, a winning mindset is recognizing that we have all these states. We have all of these aspects of ourselves, and we're never one person all of the time. And how do we utilize our alter egos, for example? How do we use our warrior ego to be able to come into play so that we can move forward? Maybe sometimes we have to, we often use, sometimes we use an outside source like God or whatever to call on to help us. It doesn't matter what we use, but something that allows us to feel comforted so that we can go forward. I think it's a really important thing. So the idea when I spoke earlier with you being so wonderful, talking about how you encourage your students and how important it is for you to have gone through all of the learning you have so that you can encourage the active mindset of someone else. So that feels to me like a really very valuable piece of the puzzle that we need to pay attention to, and to the consciousness, having the awareness, and then the intention. So we have the awareness, doesn't mean we've changed, but we have the intention. When we set the intention, we set the direction, don't we? And once we've done that, we've set the direction, we've now got to connect with ourselves in order to move it forward. And you were saying that we have to keep doing something in continuity. Yes, we have to. What allows us to do that? Do you have an idea what might allow us to stay in connection, or to stay in continuity, that we develop that will to go, like you said, that swimmer Kirsty, she swam 4 hours a day in COVID, right, on her own. How, what was that? Do you have a sense of where perseverance might come from?
Yeah, I think that perseverance really is one of the things that sets people apart in their like goals, right? And in their the people who are all stars in certain areas is really that perseverance piece, their willingness to like get up and do whatever it is that they're doing
Mm.
and not get distracted. Right. So many of us get distracted along the way, and it's really is like, what is your goal that you're going to do for yourself, and then how are you going to commit to it and hold yourself accountable for it, I
Yeah.
think is one of the things that we really need to think about when we're talking about that winning mindset, because you are responsible for you, right? And you are responsible for your reactions to things. And so one of the things that I did for myself this year, because I always struggle with that consistency piece, is I like have so many ideas bouncing around in my head all the time. And yet I'm like, okay, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to, right? And so I was like, how can I commit to myself for an entire year? Was one of the things that I asked myself at the beginning of the year. And then I was like, how will I know that I have accomplished this by the end of the year, whether I do it or not? Like, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that my goal it was to write 52 blogs in a year. And so right now I've consistently written, I think I'm on like number 26. And so when I started at the beginning of the year. It wasn't like the first week of January. It might have been the second or the third week. But now I've consistently every single week written 26 blogs for this
Wow.
entire. And so I'll know by the end of the year if I can commit to myself 100% in being able to do that. And the other goal was to also do a little video and post it on social media that connected to that blog.
Block.
So whether I do anything else this year, and I have other goals like outside of that too, like I published another book on Reiki for kids. It's a workbook on like when you teach Reiki. And so that was another goal that's like intermingled in that goal. But my like big overarching goal for myself for the year is to write one blog entry a week and to be able to like do it for the entire year. And so far, so good. But there definitely are times where I'm very aware of myself being like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. Like nobody's reading it anyways. But I'm like, no, I committed to myself, so I'm going to do it. And there's definitely weeks where I'm like getting it done and posted like way later than I would have hoped, but I'd still like, no, this is my goal. I'm going to have 52 done by the end of the year. Right. And so it is that like perseverance, even when things come up that you don't expect, when your week is extremely busy and you don't have any other time. And so when are you going to write? Right. And so, and then it doesn't matter too if anybody else is doing it or reading it or seeing it. It's really about like, what is your commitment to yourself? And then how are you going to measure that you've achieved that commitment? Right. And it is
Yeah,
something has to be
absolutely.
something that you are in control of as well, I think, because then you'll know that you've committed to it. And they talk about like SMART goals, right? And it's I forget all what the acronym is 100%, but it's like one of them's about time
Be
commitment.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, specific.
Which
You
I
be
which I guessed was I'm going to do 52 blogs once
yeah,
every week. And it,
measurable.
yeah, and it doesn't matter where in the week. So you gave yourself some flexibility, but there was a non-negotiable. This is what I'm going to do
Yeah,
to myself, right? So yeah,
yeah.
accountability in action. Yeah. Then yeah,
And time. You give
and
yourself a time.
time. Yeah. And what
Yeah.
resources do you need is the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those like set using that acronym and I know that one's all over the internet because
Yeah.
we used
There are
that one
lots.
15 years ago when I started teaching was like, we're gonna set all these SMART goals with kids and use this acronym. And
Well, it's amazing. Kids, our brain likes to go forward, right? Our brain really loves that. If we give clear things to clear direction to our brain will go for it.
mhm,
It's when it isn't clear or when we have some form of conflict that's happening for us. So
mhm,
for you, it was kind of that you might have said, "Oh, yeah, but on those days that I feel rubbish, but you said, well, on those days, then maybe you won't do it tomorrow, but you will do it. But this week, there's a time frame, right? So I'm giving you slack over the time frame, but I'm not giving you slack over the fact of
There are
you.
definitely days when I binge watch TV for 2 hours because I'm
Yeah,
just so tired. This is the worst. I should be doing my goals and I
I
should be
don't.
reading this book and I should be like making some social media posts. And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna lay here and watch whatever it is that I'm watching, whatever movie it is or whatever TV show. I'm not a big TV person, but there are definitely days where I'm just like done. I'm done and I just spend a bunch of time binging that and I get upset with myself because I'm like I really want to like be working towards these things, but then I also am conscious of like my energy, and if I don't rest, then I'm going to get sick. And I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and so it's almost like when I have those days and those times, it's that's myself telling me like I need to rest. And but then I also know that I can't just rest forever and I need to get myself back up and by the end of the week ensure that I've reached my goals. And I did like have to catch up on some of my little like short social media videos. I made 3 in 1 week because I was a little bit behind, but I'm like, by the end of the year, I'm gonna have all of these done. I spaced them out as I posted them because June was really busy as a teacher. Like I'm writing report cards. We've got all these events where my daughter had like different things going on. There was I was doing this mentorship program. Like there's so many things that were going on, and I play soccer, and there's just like 100 things that were happening, and they just didn't get made. So then I was like, okay, I got to catch up. Like I'm determined to make sure that I do this by the end of the year, even if I'm like a couple weeks behind on one area, I can catch up in another area, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something too that my goal over the year is to make sure I get 52
Yeah,
done.
yeah. And I think what I'm also hearing here is about developing a sense of self-compassion when
Mhm.
we don't quite meet our mark, right? And how do we get the self-compassion, that sense of ability? Because we know that beating ourselves up isn't the way to go.
Mhm.
Beating ourselves up makes us feel small, makes us feel awful. It messes with our mind. But if we are able to be compassionate and to be able to notice things, so one of the things is when I binge watch, and I do that too, and that's really you going into the default network so that that your brain can rest, right? So yes, you're watching, but maybe you're watching mindlessly, which is often a case. But if you stop and you say, okay, how come I chose this program? How come I chose this? What's in this that I need to hear right now? It becomes a very active process. And actually, it's re-energizing, strangely enough, even though you're watching and glut watching. And I think there's something about, okay, so I need a rest, right? I'm binge watching. Yes, I'm feeling a bit annoyed that I haven't done those things. But if you're able to just go, okay, yes, this is what I've done. I can be compassionate, but be curious. What's going on now? How come I'm looking at this program as opposed to that one? You know,
Mhm.
what messages am I getting in this program that maybe I could pay attention to that might connect to my life? And it's really interesting how, since I've done that on my tired days, and when I have noticed I've been binge watching, I actually stop and do that now. And actually, that motivates me to maybe write a blog post. It motivates me to look at things slightly differently from a different angle. And so, and that encourages me, and it makes me feel quite, yeah. And it kind of says, oh wow, we're doing the process of facilitation or not necessarily utilization. We
It's funny because I
utilize.
have that same thing where like sometimes when I get behind, I'm like, oh, I was almost meant to get behind because then I listened to this podcast at the gym and then it actually helped me write the rest of my blog entry.
Exactly.
And so, or I see something on a TV show, like you were saying, where it's that like, oh, that's why I was like being distractible is because I
Yeah,
actually needed to hear this first before I could.
exactly.
So I like that you said that because that happens to me too.
These are the synchronicities, aren't they? So in
Mm,
a way, it's really about, and maybe this is what people don't really understand. We need that downtime because when we're focused, we actually need time for things to go into the brain in order for it to kind of get to settle, right? So that we can start to use it in a different way. It's like a computer gets full up, right? Or something gets full up and then it can't do anything. It's had time to settle and move into the space where it needs to go. So I think that you then listening to a podcast, doing something slightly different where you let your brain relax, let your brain go into this other place where it was pushing all data all over the show. And then you had this other thing that came in that then allowed you to see something which was so powerful for you. And not just that, it changed your mood, it changed the way you were and the way you thought about things. I think, when we think about winning mindsets, we also need to pay attention to these little things too, because these are the things that create those synchronicities that make us see life as a beautiful tapestry that we are weaving, or a painting like your glorious painting behind you that we're painting in order to create a masterpiece, which is us. We're all
I love that.
becoming.
You're the first person who's actually commented on it, which is amazing because I find it like this. It's funny because I have been sitting in my room when I come on here the last couple of times because I don't want to wake up my daughter. And you're the first person who's commented on this specific painting and asked like more in depth about
Mm,
like what the symbolism behind it is, because almost all of the paintings that I've done in my house, because all of the paintings in my house are ones that me and my daughter have done, and they all have like different meanings behind them. And essentially it's it there's a different like energy to each of them as well. And I just found that so interesting. And then how different pieces like come together as I learn more about different things too.
mm,
And I think that's really, really important, is that we understand that sometimes we need to just wait. And I know for myself too, like when you're put on the spot and you're like, okay, you need to get this done right now. It's like, no, I have no ideas. I have no ideas at all. I know for myself at work, they're like, okay, we need all these ideas for this like
yeah,
thing at work. And I'm like, you can't make me sit in a meeting and have any ideas. I will have zero ideas for you. I hate meetings. They are not productive at all. They are actually counterproductive because you're wasting my time. But if you tell me ahead of time what it is that I need to like be thinking about, then I will come up with something, but I guarantee you it won't be in a meeting. It will be when I'm in the shower. It will be when I'm walking
mm,
down the street. It will be when I'm driving in the car. It
yeah,
will be while I'm at the gym on the bike.
yeah,
I will not come up with
yeah.
anything productive or like inspiring sitting here in your meeting. I guarantee you that.
Mm,
And so my principal has really learned to like work with me with that, where they'll be like, okay, we're having a meeting about the assembly, the spring assembly, and we need to know about the artwork and we need to know about this. And I'm always the art person, right? And so I'm like, tell me what the theme is 2 weeks ahead of time. I'm not coming to your meeting, but I will send you my thoughts in an email. Because I'm like, that's a waste of my time. And I'm a single mom and I have to pick up my daughter by 4:20 and I have to leave the school by 4 o'clock and we end at 3:20. So I'm not coming to your meetings.
yeah,
But they always, almost always, like literally always take my ideas because they're good and they're connected and you can see the interconnections of all of the pieces. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I sat in the meeting or if you
yeah,
put me on the spot. If you allow me to like hear it and then have that going on in the back of my brain for whatever reason,
mm,
that's how I work the best. And so I love how you said that about your writing too, because it's like you get these ideas when you're not actually sitting there focused on it and
yeah,
like stressing out to the max, that and that's that warrior mentality, right?
mm,
I don't worry when people are like, okay, you need to come up with like a school-wide theme of art for this spring concert focused on pirates. I'm like, okay, I'll come up with something. And but like leave it with me. Let me think
yeah,
on it. Give me the weekend. Don't put me on the spot because I will have nothing for you. And so that, and then, yeah, this year our theme was pirates, and we did a this, we called it the sea of our school, and we had
Ah,
500 kids' pictures across the school, across the gym on paper that looked like water. And each class was a different thing. Like our class was pirates and another class was sailors. And so their face was drawn, like we printed out pictures of all their faces. And then they drew themselves on like a pirate body. And then some people were seahorses and some classes were fish and some were sharks and some, like it looked amazing. The whole entire gym was surrounded with this ocean of our class
imagine. Oh,
and
wow.
pretending to be whatever it was. And it was this huge
Mm,
art project, but it turned out absolutely amazing.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to sit and come up with that in a meeting. You'd be like this like mishmash of like crap that was is happens when I'm not responsible for the theme of the gym.
And I think, what's really lovely to hear there, and what I suppose what I'm getting is that you have the capacity and the ability to say, no, I'm not going to that meeting, right? I know how I work best, right?
Mhm,
I know my process. I know
mhm,
what I need. And I think what that really talks about is that all of us have a different way of processing, right? A different way of looking at the world. And they say there's probably about seven that are sort of known kind of processes that we all have. And we will move between them. We won't just, we'll have one, but we'll have a predominant one. And then what will happen is we will start to utilize them as we start thinking about things. So you get the information that comes in, and then you use your arty background or whatever you've learned about that, and you think, oh, this will be a good idea, that'll be a good idea. And then in some way it comes into a structure so that you can give an idea. So there's a kind of a moving around in your brain, right?
mhm.
From place to place to place to place, where it creates something and you go, now I've got the idea. Takes you about 2 weeks
Yeah.
to put some of those ideas down. But this is what's really important is a lot of people, and maybe this is a key thing, if we struggle with normal studies, it's probably because we're a learner that's an embodied learner. And
Mhm.
embodied learners, they get the information, but they can't necessarily bring it into the highest, the attention of our cognitive brain. It's all learning and needs to kind of move forward in a very different way. And so it's just understanding they need time. They probably need more time than people that have the ability to just come up with answers, come up with creative things, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's so important, uh, and it's so important that you demonstrating here, this is your process, this is what you do, right? And I'm willing to stand in that. I know this works, this is how it's going to be. And that also is part of that winning mindset. That's part of being able to have the courage to be able to set it up in the first place, that you, because I'm not sure the other teachers do that, but I'm sure that you do, right?
Well, it's that learning to set boundaries too around your
Yeah,
time and your
exactly.
space and how you work best and how you can be the most efficient with your time. And I have people be like, how do you teach full time and then write a blog and then be a single mom and get your daughter to all of these things and then write books on the side? And I said, because I'm very efficient with my time. Like,
Mm.
don't waste my time because time's something you can't get back. And
Yeah.
I get so frustrated with time wasting activities because I'm like, this is not productive. This is not, and not that you always have to be productive because, like I said, I binge watch TV for a few hours every once in a while because I just am done. Right. And so that winning mindset is really, I think, sometimes about like, what are your time wasters?
Mm.
What are your time wasters that you are wasting a whole bunch of time doing? And how can you be more efficient so that you have more time to focus on the things that are going to help you achieve your goals? And I think that's something that, like, you probably do that too in your business, where it's like, how can I be efficient and productive and then also have this time and space for myself so that I have also time to do the things that I really truly enjoy doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and there are things that you actively, planning your day is a really helpful thing, right? Knowing what you're going to do during the day, setting it up, looking at it, maybe making sure that you have one or two, two or three consistent goals through the day that you're going to fulfill, so that by the end of the day, you feel good, right? You feel, oh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Wow. Okay. So tomorrow, this is what I'll do to add on to that. So I think that these, obviously, if you're running a business, you need to have a presence. So you need to have that compounded effect of constantly being in the present, and being present for others in a very special way, and in your own unique way too, right? So I think that's a key thing. And for me, really, it is about knowing what I'm going to do at the start of the day, right? Knowing that and planning that out, looking at it and ticking it off. For me, ticking off is actually, it probably takes me back to my childhood where I liked to have the tick or the gold star, or some of those sort of things. But yeah, these are the internal things that give me my little boost. And then also look at what have I learned that's new? What have I looked at it that's new? So that I can embellish on that and explore that a little more deeply, which is what I quite like to do. But I'm very I'm quite a reflective person. That's part of my personality. So I really like to look at things like these synchronicities that you sort of said, oh, now I know why I had to go and listen to that podcast, right? Almost like there's something there that I needed to be in this space in order to hear that. I think for me, it's really about reflecting over all the things that I do, particularly at the end of the day, to reflect over my day, and look at where things went well, where things didn't go well, and to kind of not really reflect on the not wellness, but more about reflecting back on what if it was a good thing, why would it have been a good thing, right? If I didn't do this, why would it have been a good thing? And I know
Almost a lesson learned in some ways.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like there's no good or bad. It's just, well, if that happened, okay, so how is this good,
Yeah.
right? So that we're not going down that other thing. We're looking at all those other, we let our brain open up, because the moment we start to go into, oh, that was bad, and you get that negative feeling, you shut down, right? We all just close down. So you want to have a way of being able to look at your day, which is, well, okay, that I can see that wasn't as you wanted it, but let's have a look at this. Okay, I wouldn't have heard that podcast, right? I wouldn't have had this, I wouldn't have had that. So it brings in a sense of gratitude, it brings in a sense of joy, and it brings in all those. And to be really honest, we need to have more and more and more of that in our being, so that we can manage all the difficult times, because not everything is going to go our own way. And we need to be able to do that switch. And I think when we have enough resources, we can switch much, much quicker.
Yeah. I think too, like when you talk about a winning mindset and you talk about how you set up your day, that's really, really important, because that reflective piece is important too. And I know there's like research on gratitude, and when you like focus on three things that you're grateful for, you actually like rewire your brain
Yeah.
into focusing more on the positive. And so that's also something that I do for myself. I have a goals and gratitude journal, and it really started with somebody one of my friends giving me this like 90-day goal journal. And I was like, okay, at the start of this year, I'm gonna write in this for 90 days. And then once that was over, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna make my own. And I changed it and I tweaked it and I made it on Amazon. And now I'm on like almost 118 days, right? Because I've almost finished my second journal of this, where every morning I write what I'm grateful for, and I set up my three things that I want to achieve that day. And then like I send positivity ahead to my day. And then at the end of the day, I write down three things that I'm grateful for, a lesson learned, and like one person that I'm super grateful for the day. And I think that's like a really good way to like set up the day in the morning and then end in the evening as
Yeah.
well. And that's another like commitment to self and consistency, right? That like I can be consistent in doing this like 10-minute activity for myself each and every day. Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't have 10 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's Amanda, you tapped on something which I started to think, we actually, everything's like a cycle, isn't it? we have a beginning and we have an end. So when we have the end of the day and we're looking back and we're reflecting and we finish the day, we literally complete the day so that we go into the sleep time at
Mhm.
the optimum time for
Mhm.
all the information to actually process better and faster. So this is for people that are listening, this is a really key thing. And it's so simple, right? It's not even a challenge to do 3 things to be grateful for, three things outcome for the day. And, so you do 3 things, the outcome of the day. And then at the end of the day, you do a reflection and maybe you could write that down in the chat and we can maybe put it down in Facebook so that we have it there for everyone so that they can have a look.
Yeah.
Because I think it's such a beautiful thing, and also for people to understand the reason why. It's really that we're saying this is the end, right? Like when we have a trauma, most of the reason we keep having sort of flashbacks is because there's no end in the trauma part of our nervous system. So we want to end it. We want to create an end. So doing an end to a day is a really great way to allow you to have good REM sleep so that you process properly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then cultivating a winning mindset too, if you think about if you don't get enough sleep, like how is your mind feeling the next day? Not good. Like I'm so
No.
grumpy and so overtired and then I get down on myself because I'm like I'm not being as productive as I should be because I didn't get enough sleep. And then it's like that worrying mindset is cultivated by lack of sleep. And so then how can I structure my sleep better so that I am like I used to be the worst sleeper. And then I have like these strategies like making sure I put my devices away at a certain time so that I do have that downtime to journal and then read and then sleep. And then if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't go to a device, I just keep reading my book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can't read fiction books because they keep me awake at night. I read like fact books because they help me
You
like
sleep.
learn and then also fall asleep because I'm like, oh yes, like it's when I read fiction books, I literally will stay up till like 2
Yeah.
in the morning being like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And I'll like read the entire thing in like a day. And I'm like, no, that like totally ruined my sleep because I can't sleep when I'm like want to know what the end is.
Right. So read a boring thing.
Well, not even read a boring thing, just read something that's like not like activating your mind in a
Yeah.
way that's going to keep you awake, right? And that's the thing that I find with fiction books or even with movies is or like even TV shows that are like a series is
Yeah.
that they end on a cliffhanger
I
so that you
know.
oh, I have to watch the next one and now I have to watch the next one and now I have to watch the whole thing until the series is done and I just wasted like however many hours of my life.
But there may
But the
be
series
something
is
in
so
there you
good,
needed.
right?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amanda. I mean, it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, everybody that says on, I hope you've enjoyed it too. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow again on Incozy Talk Shows. Lead from within. Yeah, winning mindset. Yes, winning mindset warriors. Right. From warrior to warrior.
I love that. I love the warrior to warrior. It's
Yeah,
so
I think
fun.
that's we
You could
can always
almost see like the evolution as like a cartoon.
exactly a bit like your thing. We move from being ungrounded all the way up to being nicely grounded, and we're in
Mhm.
soul spirit, totally aligned. Love that.
Yeah, where we're connected and standing in our true divine self.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
thank you again, and take care, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.